Well, folks, this is going to be a ripper leading your best life, because today we're talking to a world champion free diver. Helen Allison is in our pod squad, and she swims with one big flipper, and that was what it's all that about. And she started telling us about this world of free diving. But today we're going to dive down deep, Helen, with you into the world of free diving. So welcome to Leading Your Best Life.
Thanks, Leigh. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, you know, you are clearly leading your best life, and part of what we want to talk about is consciously making a decision to lead a particular lifestyle, to lead a life that, you know, is fulfilling for you. So I want to get into that. I want to talk about the breathing. I want to show people pictures of what you've been up to. You're world champion. I need to bow down to you as a world champion.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. You've had a lot of that lately, haven't you? People bowing down and saying well done, which of course...
There's been a lot of interest, that's
you,
for sure.
You deserve.
Yeah,
In fact, why don't I immediately just show people, so we give it some context of here you are in the Philippines, 50 meters, 3 world records, CMAS World Cup depths, the first woman age 70 to achieve these records. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What a fantastic thing. And then some of these photos of you, there you are. And there's great video.
That's a great one. When I've got the white tag in my hand that you have to bring up from the bottom plate to show that you got there. But there's also a camera down there that shows that you've been to the bottom and that you haven't just put a similar white tag in your wetsuit and brought it up from halfway down. So yeah, there's ways to make sure that I went to the bottom, but yeah, really happy, really happy when I got the first.
Your face certainly shows you being really happy. But let's start with your journey. There's an accent there, Helen. So tell us about the Helen Allison journey. From where have you come from, and what's been the journey to get to where you are now, and a world champion?
Well, Leigh, thank you very much for that. And hello to everyone that might be listening. I hope you enjoy the story. Well, it has been 70 years, as you've said. I was born in Inverness to 2 lovely parents. And I guess it's the gratitude that I have to the way those 2 parents brought me up from a very early age that has really got me to this stage. So the foundation has been very, very good indeed. We lived in Inverness for 3 years where there was a heated swimming pool. So my mother would take the 3 kids, I've got 2 older brothers, we would go swimming. So I was a water baby from as young as 3 years old, swimming in that pool, before my father, who was a builder's merchant, got a job in the small town of Invergordon, about 30 miles north of Inverness. So that's in the northeast of Scotland. So north of Loch Ness, but south of Thurso and the north coast. So there, my father was very outdoors as well. So we would spend our weekends going out and about, looking for wild fruit that we made jam out of, or wine, or those sorts of things. We'd go looking for birds' nests, which was quite the done thing. So we were very much out and about as a family. I do have a photograph here that was taken in the winter, when the winters in Scotland were really cold and the ponds would freeze in the fields. And my father's out there with his skates on. He used to be a nice hockey player, and we were just sliding around. So the weather in Scotland doesn't stop you. You just have to rug up and be adapted to the cold. So it was very much a very free, easy childhood that I had, with parents that were loving. And I think from that position allowed me to venture forth with the security and the confidence that I did. They never wished to hold us back, my 2 brothers and myself. So we were all science orientated and interested and curious really about the world around us, which was a beautiful way to be. The first time that I would have ventured overseas was after my 6th year at school. And I went to Norway to live with a family to help the children speak English and just to learn the lifestyle. So there was my earliest chance to go overseas and be curious about other people, which then continued to this day, really. So I think it's that curiosity that really is part of my inner self. It's the curiosity, the wish to learn. I have now got 3 degrees. So I've got an honours degree from Aberdeen University in zoology, a master's in marine science from James Cook University in far north Queensland, and a PhD from Murdoch University in Perth, all with working in between. I didn't go right through. So I did work and see the world before being tied into the university system. I didn't go straight through.
Wow. So it all seems to come back to, that outdoor birds, jam, berries, outside.
Very much so.
The father and your mother getting out there and, as you say, not holding you back. And obviously the curiosity and the learning that goes with being outside and doing those things in as you say, it's not cold, you just rug up, which from what I recall, that is like a Scandinavian saying. There's no such thing as bad weather. It's just people badly dressed for the weather.
Yeah.
Put the right gear on and just get on with it, which is very much, it sounds like your life, put the right gear on and get on with it.
True. And now at Invergordon, they do have a swimming pool. Well, when I was there, it was a concrete tub, basically, and they would pipe water from the Cromarty Firth, which is the firth that we're on, into the pool. And just recently, I do have an Invergordon page that I look at, and here was this swimming pool that we used to go to in the summer. But we would swim from Easter onwards when the ocean was still probably 7 degrees, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe. Amazing.
Get up to 12, 13, 14. But yeah, we would swim in those conditions, mostly in the swimming pool. And then we would have a cup of hot orange or hot OXO to warm our fingers up after we'd been swimming.
7 degrees. Well, here we are this morning. I think it was 16.8 and people are saying this is cold, but our friends in Victoria, Ingleby, sent a picture through at 11 degrees at Anglesea, which looked beautiful. But there you are in 6 and 7 degrees as skinny little kids jumping. It just shows how amazingly adaptable the human body and the human, condition can be. To think that people can adapt to that and just go, well, that's just what we do. And it gets up to 14 degrees. That's when it's warm compared to here in Perth, 20, 24 degrees or 23 and 24 degrees. Just incredible.
But if you're in my family, my brothers are also outdoors orientated. And for their summer holidays, in the Scotland, I think in Wimbledon, it's 16 degrees during the day at the moment. So that's summer. But they tend to go to colder places like Svalbard or Greenland, and they're all in the Arctic societies. So yes, very much cold adapted. You just put clothes on and off you go, and at least you can warm up in a colder climate.
Well, as you say, and you said gratitude there before, gratitude to your parents for exposing you to that lifestyle. We talk about, the forest shapes the tree. The ecosystem that you grow up in clearly shapes who you are. So career-wise, I remember you telling me, as a zoologist or marine scientist, you did work in Africa and other places as well. Do you want to just share some of those things you did in different parts of the world?
That was later on in my career. Maybe if we go back to the beginning.
Sure.
So the travel started with going to Norway, and that was a beautiful lifestyle, just like my own. I lived on a farm. And then I did just write a few notes. When I was at university, between going into my honours year, I in fact took a job, or I created a job. I was a scuba diving instructor on the island of Agistri of Athens.
Wow.
So I did that for 6 weeks. And then I went to Crete, where I studied damselflies for my zoology honors project.
Wow. Damselflies.
Damselflies, a smaller form of a dragonfly. Yeah, yeah. And a family took me in basically off the streets. I was going to camp, but they didn't allow that. So they were very good. And yeah, I spent 6 weeks conversing in Greek, or pidgin Greek. So that was one of my travels. And that was to start my kind of academic research career with an honors project.
Wow. And what was so special about the damselflies?
Damselflies are beautiful creatures because they have got an aquatic phase, which is a nymph, and they will then transform into the flying adult stage. And they are avid hunters. So they've got huge eyes on the side of their heads so that they can see and locate their prey, smaller things. And they're beautiful. The ones I was studying, they change color. The males change color from green to blue as they age. And there's 4 or 5 different color morphs of the females. And I discovered a new color while I was in Crete at the place I was studying them. So that I was doing some terrestrial, some zoology, and then the desire to come to Australia was to look to dive on the Barrier Reef. But in the meantime, I got the chance to do my master's at James Cook, and I looked at the uptake of nickel and cadmium, 2 toxic metals, into an oyster to look at the impacts of the Ubulu nickel refinery, which was allowed to pour its effluent into the ocean, which would then flow around the Palm Islands, where the Aboriginal people had a project to have some industry, some income from growing oysters there. So that was a very useful project.
So did it have impact? Did it, how toxic was it? What impact did it have?
Nickel wasn't a very interesting metal. It has a very short half-life, so it goes into the tissues, but it doesn't stay there. If you purge them for a day and a half, 50% is lost. So there's a half-life of about a day and a half.
Okay, so that's not too bad, huh?
Compared with cadmium, which is from worms to humans, if you're exposed to cadmium, you produce a low molecular weight protein that binds to the cadmium to try to detoxify it. So that was a very interesting metal to have a look at. It was just the contrast between one that can go in and come out rapidly, contrasting with the other one that can go in rapidly, but is also then stored in the body. Hopefully some of it.
Does it compound? Does it compound? Obviously, you don't want to be hanging around cadmium too long if it compounds it.
Yes, it will. It will accumulate. Yeah. And particularly we notice that in bivalves, because they're filtering so much water, it will increase with age.
Wow.
Which was before I'd quite finished my master's, I got a job in Northern Territory looking at the impacts of uranium mining on the environment. And we used a freshwater mussel to monitor the system. So my job was to prepare samples to have them analyzed for a range of minor and major elements to see the relationship with age to accumulation, which is all part of the process of the baseline studies before mining occurred.
Okay. Wow. You are a scientist indeed.
I am.
Before we bamboozle people with too much science, let's talk about the science of you and your life and some of the decisions you've made. If we're talking about
Okay.
life by design, what have been some of the conscious decisions you've made in your life? Obviously, one is coming to Australia,
Yeah, that
but
was a
what have
big
been
one.
some of those conscious decisions you've made to say, I want to do that, and therefore and away you go? What have been some of those decisions?
Well, that seems to have been the pattern from an early age, whereas it didn't matter what other people were doing. You know, my desire to go and teach scuba diving and to do my project overseas, that was, you know, a major decision. Sometimes I'm not sure where these decisions come from. The desire to come to Australia was to dive on the Barrier Reef, that's for sure. And then there are just some opportunities that arrive. Oh, there's a mistletoe bird just come to my water bath. Don't know if you heard. Did you pick it the sound up? No.
No.
Yeah, they're beautiful. Red breast with a black stripe down front. So yes, there's lots of times where I've wondered where the ideas come from. I guess my personality type is intuitive, I suppose. If you're using Myers-Briggs, I'm an extroverting, intuitive, thinking, perceiving, ENTP. So I'm very much in the moment, rather than too forward thinking. So if it feels right at the moment, then that I make that decision, and then I will make it happen, whatever it takes to make it happen. So the desire to see the Barrier Reef, I made it happen to come to Australia. And, you know, those were hard times. Yes, I didn't have to pay fees, but I still had to survive. So I was working in Townsville. I was looking after people in the university halls of residence. So I had to take jobs to see my way through. And when I finally got the job before I finished my master's, I had $180 left in the bank account. To move on.
By the way, how do you feel when, I mean, some people freak out. How did you feel when you had $180 left in the bank account? Were you panicking, or you just knew something was going to happen, or what was your thought?
Yeah, I think I had already got the job by then. But yes, I didn't seem to worry about it at that stage. And it was like when I hitchhiked through Europe with a girlfriend, that was the time of traveler's checks. So you just, you know, we traveled for 7 weeks on £100, hitchhiking through Europe in 1972, I think it was. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
on £100.
On £100, yeah.
Wow, that's what did you do? Beg for baked beans on street corners or something?
Sometimes we had a ground sheet, so sometimes we lay on it, and sometimes we put it over as if it was raining. Yeah.
Well, that's adventurous. That's adventurous. Fantastic. So
hitchhiking was much easier in the 70s
in
than it
those
is
days,
now.
in the 70s, since I think 1972, that's the Gough Whitlam got into power here in Australia when the Labor government got in. But it's a whole other story, that one. So let's talk about diving, as you say. So you were scuba diving. How did you get into the free diving? What was the catalyst for that?
I got my ticket for scuba diving in 1973 and taught in 1976. And then I used scuba diving throughout my career. If I was either in the freshwater system for the freshwater mussels, we used a hookah or a pump in the boat to go into our demand valves. I did some diving for the EPA in Cockburn Sound, and I had 3 or 4 expeditions to the Great Barrier Reef to do research on sea snakes or research on mollusks. And of course, in Jabiru, there were crocodiles also in the billabong, so we had to kind of contend with that. Wow. But there was a time where if I'm not working, then scuba diving isn't all that much interest to me because I'm not a photographer. So I gave it up for many years until a friend 8 years ago needed somewhere to stay when he was doing a course doing this thing called freediving. I went, oh, that sounds interesting. So the very next course, I did level 1, organized by the wonderful Tanya Douthwaite from Blueback Freediving and Yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to 16 or 18 meters in the river at the Coombs. And within that year, I'd done level 1, level 2, level 3 of freediving, because it was just a wonderful, wonderful sport to get into. But I did have to go up to Indonesia to get greater depths. So hence
Okay.
the love
Well,
affair with.
you've already mentioned that link, free diving and yoga. So tell me about that relationship between free diving and yoga, because lately I've been doing yoga and getting more and more interested in the power of breathing and the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system and the mind and so on. So tell me your experiences and your understanding of that free diving and yoga link.
Yes. Yoga, there's so many different ways to think about yoga. Yoga can be that practice of just stretching, whether it's the slow, sustained stretching or the more fired up way of yoga, whichever way you wish to do it. What I guess people that are interested in yoga as part of freediving may do it for the stretching. So if I'm doing yoga, it will tend to be the form that increases my flexibility, particularly my rib cage, my intercostal muscles, my diaphragm. So you need that flexibility in the front and the back of your diaphragm in order to have as much air in your lungs as possible on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And in freediving, we do take a 3-part breath. The 3-part breath is where you use your diaphragm, which you pull it down to take air in. You'll then expand your rib cage at the front as well as the back. So it's a conscious breath that you're taking. And then the last breath will be right up into your throat. So it's the biggest breath that you can take. And then some will then pack. So we'll sip in a little bit of more air. So the more flexible that your body is, the more air that you can take in, and therefore the more oxygen that you have to use when you're not breathing underwater.
Yes, yes. So, I mean, I'm just looking on the internet as you're talking there, because having done the yoga, they certainly talk about yogic breathing and the whole thing here of, as you say, the down the belly,
That's
the
right.
ribs, the chest, the yogic breath to really fill the lungs. I mean, a friend of mine, David Horlock, said to me years ago, Leigh, I don't think you breathe deeply enough. I said, what are you talking about? I swim every day. I'm puffing. But now I understand this whole yogic breath and the power of filling up the lungs completely. And then, of course, controlling inhalation and exhalation. These guys talk about pranayama, which is very much about yogic breathing. So there's obviously the air you need to do the diving, but let's talk about, and maybe I'll go to your Facebook page and maybe we look at the video that's here, that ABC story. I won't put the sound of it. Let's just look at while you're diving. Clearly, when you're doing that diving, and you're going down to 50 meters there. Tell us what's happening with your breathing and what are you doing with your diaphragm and your mind?
Yes. The mind is very important. So in order to be able to equalize, you have to be very relaxed. So on the surface, the process will be that there's a bit of controversy about how you breathe on the surface. You certainly don't want to hyperventilate.
Why is that? Why don't you want to
Some,
hyperventilate?
pardon?
Why wouldn't you want to hyperventilate?
You don't want to hyperventilate because that means that you get rid of too much CO2 in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And you want the CO2 there because that's what gives you the urge to breathe. It's not the lack of oxygen that makes you want to take in a big breath. It's the buildup of CO2.
Mm-hmm.
So we have all heard, I guess, of shallow water blackout or ascending blackout. So people that are not trained for free diving may think it's better to hyperventilate before they go. But if you don't have the urge to breathe, you might then use up too much of the oxygen in your blood, and below the partial pressure of 0.12, then your brain will say, oh, I've just got to shut down for a minute. There's not enough oxygen in my blood to keep my brain going. So the reason we don't hyperventilate is for that reason alone. And we do take some extra air in because at the surface, if we've got a full lung at the surface, at 10 meters, we're at 2 atmospheres. So the discomfort of having too much air in your lungs, by the time you're at 10 meters, your lungs are at 50% of the volume that they were at the surface. So that discomfort is not there anymore, but you have got more air in which to equalize your ears. And that's, sorry?
No, keep going. It's fascinating, the science of the breathing. And as you, when you think it might be uncomfortable, but as you get to 10 meters, it's not uncomfortable.
No, it's not uncomfortable at all. And then at 30 meters, your lungs are at a third of their size. So at 50 meters, you're at 6 atmospheres. So your lungs are compressed and you're trying to just feel that pressure and use your diaphragm to maybe push your diaphragm out a little bit so that the diaphragm doesn't get sucked up into your chest cavity because your lungs are so small. Wow. And there's a couple of ways to equalize your ears, and that's the thing that stops many people from freediving because they can't equalize their ears. And we have very advanced ways of doing that if you want to go below 40 to 50 meters.
Okay. Can you demonstrate that today, right now then? Is it right? Just get me to do some exercises now so people to learn in terms of how you, first of all, breathe on the surface to fill up your lungs. And then let's talk about the equalization. Because you made us, you brought that to our attention even when we're duck diving at Pod Squad. That you said, like I would never only ever try and equalize close to the bottom when my ears were hurting. We said, no, you do it at the. So let's in the first instance, let's talk about the breathing, demonstrate, and then get me to practice some of the breathing techniques you do on the surface. Okay. How does it go?
So the best way to do that is to have your hands sitting on your tummy. Mm-hmm. And this will be the first part of the breath. Mm-hmm. So you want to feel your tummy coming outwards and your diaphragm drawing down. So that would be the step one. So if we do that together, we can just breathe in and make it as long as possible before you expand your rib cage. So let's do that now.
No, I've been reading the book Breath, and he talks a lot about the importance of nasal breathing versus mouth breathing. Does that matter to you?
Well, if I'm doing it on land, I will. But when I'm going for a dive, I've got a nose clip on.
All right, okay.
So I have to
breathe
take
in the
air
mouth.
In through the mouth. And it's easier to have a nice, slow inhale through the mouth compared with the nose, because we'll narrow our lips and take a nice slow inhale. We don't go.
Oh, that's interesting. So
it's a very slow inhalation.
Now, why would you now? Of course, from my point of view, I'd say you do a slow inhalation because you're beginning to slow your system down and relax versus rapid. So it's kind of like a parasympathetic nervous system, slow things down breath. Okay, so through the mouth. So
and it'll be pursed, and we'll do it slowly because you can get a much more controlled. So if we do until your tummy's full. Once your tummy's full, you then concentrate on the front and the back of your rib cage and try and expand that.
So it really is, as you say, conscious breath. You really are conscious.
Very conscious.
Yeah. Okay. So now go, so tummy, then aim for ribs front and back.
Ribs front and back and upper as well. So think of the upper back as well, expanding as the front. Okay. So if we do that.
Okay.
And then last bit will be without doing this.
So what's happening there? You're getting some more in your throat and in your mouth.
Right up into your throat, and then you close your glottis. Oh, and you lock it.
Okay, this is interesting. Okay, well, okay, okay.
Your hands on your tummy, make sure it's, and then feel your ribs expanding. And then if you pack, there'll be little sips. It'll be. Yeah.
Oh boy, I don't think I've ever had that much air in my body ever. That's amazing. So I might have done tummy and I might have even done ribs, but that last bit, you're absolutely right. I could feel more air going in there when you're doing that, as you say, sips, glottis, that last little piece. That's interesting, isn't it?
Where you focus. So it's a relaxed focus we always think about in freediving. We do have to be relaxed, but we still have to be focused.
Yes.
And we also do this defocusing of the area around us. So it's a thing that Natalia Molchanov, who was one of the best freediving women, and she talked about that defocusing as well. You can have concentrated focus, but when you're ready to dive, you need to defocus your eyes, and it's about seeing the whole rather than pinpointing on things. So there is that technique for relaxation as well. I don't know whether you do that in yoga, but that defocusing or decentralization. So it's a blurring of everything around you to look at the whole all at once.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, that's yogic in itself, in that we're that whole interconnection, me, universe, self, energy. But as you say, whether it be the mental thing of defocusing, so I'm not even thinking, just the energy of not, but that whole, as you say, the relaxation of defocusing. And I mean, really, sometimes in yoga, they'd say, I am not this body, I'm not even this mind. So there's a whole different energy around, I'm something beyond body and mind. If anything, I'm actually part of everything, and everything's part of me. So there's all of that going on as well. So you fascinated me a while ago with the saying that you guys said is common, is that if you want to look outside, put on tanks. If you want to look inside, do free diving. Do you want to elaborate on that? Because clearly just that exercise, and we say to people at times, you change your world, I say with 3 breaths, but really if you do 1 breath like that, because in NLP, neuro-linguistic program, we talk about how to change emotional state. And an emotional state changes, in fact, on 2 key things. 1, what are you focusing on? By focusing on past, future, present, by focusing on positive, negative. But so I'm changing my emotional state by what I focus on, but I also change my emotional state by my breathing. And certainly this slow, controlled breathing and filling up the lungs, you can change your emotion. And certainly that one example there of that, let's say it's a 10 or 15-second exercise, your world, your inner world changes. And not only inner world as in mental and connection, but inner world in terms of internal chemistry and all sorts of things are changing there. So tell me about that saying that you guys have around, you want to look inside, do free diving. How does that resonate with you?
Well, I think that's very, very true. When I'm scuba diving, which I will do again, you're very much there looking at what's around you. So that curiosity of the marine environment, whether you're taking photos or you're just curious about all the wonderful, strange creatures that are in the ocean. But when you're free diving, you're not looking at that. We have a rope in front of us, so we're tied to the rope with a lanyard. It is quick release, obviously, and we are looking more within so that we can relax. So in your journey in free diving, you know, you think, okay, I can't even get to 10 meters. But once you get to 10 meters, okay, you can't equalize anymore. And it'll be, well, you have to relax more. So then you can get to 30 meters, and then you might stick at 30 meters. So then it's again, okay, you're not relaxed. So you have to do a body scan, maybe, or you have to change how you breathe up on the surface. And for me at the moment, my PB is 54 meters. And it's not that I don't have the strength to go further and come up, but I haven't got the relaxation at depth to be able to control the air, to be able to equalize my middle ear. And that's what I'm going to be doing. I leave on Saturday to do another 2 months training before another comp. And my focus will be on how do I have the ability to relax more when I'm at 50 meters so that I can equalize the air in my middle ear. And that will be the focus. Wow. So yeah, looking inward to say, okay, have I got tension here? Where am I holding my tension? How can I use the air more efficiently that I have in my mouth? Because when you dive shallow, you're using Frenzel. So you can see that I've closed my glottis. I'm using the air in my mouth to do that. But at some point on your freediving journey, when you're kind of in the 30, 40 range, you have to learn a much more advanced technique to be able to do that. So roughly my alarm will go at about 17 meters, and I will take what's called a mouth fill. So
what do you mean by alarm? What alarm? What's the alarm?
I've got a watch.
Yes.
And I can set alarms where I go, okay, at this depth, I need to take a mouth fill, or at this depth, I need to prepare for my free fall, or at this depth.
When you say mouth fill, what do you mean your mouth fill? It comes,
mouth fill
let it come from your lung. Yeah.
Is an advanced form of equalization where we bring air up from our lungs into our mouth. We close our glottis. It'll look like this.
So you'll actually pinch your nose at 17 meters.
I have a nose clip on.
Oh, so you don't need to do that.
Pinch it.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then you hold that air above your glottis, and all this is one chamber, and it reduces in size as you're going down, but that's all the air you've got until you reach the bottom, like Alexi at 136 meters to equalize your ears.
That is unbelievable, 136 meters.
You have to close your glottis, keep your soft palate open so that it doesn't stick to the roof of your mouth. So there's a lot of technical things going on to be able to advance beyond 40, 50 meters.
Wow. Wow. Talk about Kaizen, continuous and never-ending improvement.
It is.
And conscious breathing. And there you are going, I want to get beyond 54. Yeah, it's possible.
I know. Yeah. But I think, we talked about, was it challenges or whatever? And I noticed why I love freediving. Why I love freediving is that you're always improving. You know, you're always wanting to find that little edge to let you go deeper. And yes, you do have to be fit, but you have to control your mind and control the air. It's very technical.
No doubt about it. No doubt
yes,
about it. Now you make me think, I've been doing Vedic meditation since last October. And so I got more involved in meditation and the importance of, bringing down set points, and it's not so much breathing as it is the chant. But I just wonder, in terms of if relaxation and conscious breathing is so important in free diving, and obviously yoga is part of it, the people that you've been around, what percentage of the people might do meditation to help themselves relax even more in that community? Have you seen people doing meditation
it
or
could
engaging?
be 50%.
Yeah.
Various people. I mean, free diving for me is a meditation in itself.
Of course, you have to be very, as
rather
you say,
than
relaxed, focused.
Yeah, rather than meditating outside of that. What I will do is I will do exercises most mornings for flexibility and strength as well. But I'll also do pool training as well. So you can either just swim, keep you physically active. And I've been swimming with a swim coach. So Claire Evans has been fantastic to get my fitness up. I've really enjoyed my time with her group. They've been great. But when I am training up in Bali, I will dive one day and rest the next day. So for me now, that resting is very important because of the energy that you use in a breath hold dive. It makes you physically tired, and you do have to make sure that you rest regularly so that you don't get sick. I mean, if you just push yourself too much in free diving, you can get sick, you can get ear problems, throat problems, particularly ear problems. So rest is very important. I will do various dry exercises on my rest days, particularly for the use of the throat, the glottis, and the soft palate, so that my mouth fill works more efficiently to reach 60 meters.
Well, we've learned so much there, Helen, about the science of this process. So if I asked you the question, Helen Allison, what motivates you, what drives you, and why?
I think what I would say is that in general, I've seen, I think it's my curiosity, my innate curiosity that drives me. But once I've done something, it's like climbing a mountain. I might not know where I'm going next, but I get to the top of the mountain and then I'll have a look around and see what else is out there. And I think that would probably, there's not that big long-term goal, but there are short-term goals. And sometimes it's just when that opportunity arises that I know what the next thing is going to be. Like after my first degree, I thought, no, never, ever, ever again. And then there was an opportunity to go again, and then the third degree. And my third degree, which was the PhD, it started out being something completely different. It was going to be on carbon credits, but I discovered this new theory of resilience, which was a systems-based theory. And that's that all-encompassing feedback process where everything's linked up, which is the way I think. So yes, opportunities, I will see them, but somewhat, I mean, even when I was up in the Northern Territory, I came to Perth and I bought a property even when I was living up there, because I just felt that Perth was the city that I was going to end up in.
Intuitive decisions, intuitive based.
But I've also done the Tony Robbins courses as well. I was doing various projects on property development, and during the course of that, there was the opportunity to do Tony Robbins. And no matter what people think of him, he is an amazing leader to get out of people what their desires are and to put them through things like walking on hot coals. You know, do you think you can walk on hot coals? Well, yes, I did. Who would have thought? So I think the great lesson from Tony Robbins is take that first step. You know, feel the fear, but take the step, and then it gets so much easier. So yeah, taking that fear away of doing something new and that first step, I think is so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, don't be afraid.
Absolutely. Well, I'm a big fan of Robbins myself. I've done that program, Walking on Fire, and listened to all his tapes and CDs and read his books. I mean, a lot of, as you know, he calls it neuroassociative conditioning, but it came from Bandler and Grinder, the new NLP, and he's a great exponent and coach of it. And obviously, he's just done a marvelous job with thousands and thousands of people.
And
he's
an amazing process.
Yeah.
Where he can control an audience of 3,000 people in Sydney, where I did it. Yeah. And then I did the last one out at his place in Fiji, where you climb the pole, you stand on top, you're in a harness, and you just look out and you have to leap.
Yes.
Grab hold of a bar, you know. And the message is take that leap of faith, isn't it?
Yes. Overcoming the fear, the imagined consequences versus the real consequence. As I say, the worst that could happen, you're in a safety harness and you'll miss the bar. Now, we used to do a lot of that experiential training with, when we did a lot of culture change work with Telecom Telstra Australia. So I had to do all of that myself. We did it many, many times, abseiling and pamper pole and all of those things. And it's time and time again that your brain, or if you allow your mind to, well, he calls it limiting beliefs, you know, blast away those limiting beliefs. Yeah. Because essentially, as you said in NLP, success leaves clues. And if other people have done it, then there's a reasonable chance you can do it as well. Now, obviously, you may never get to 134 meters, but as you know, as you say, it's 1%, 1%, 1%, and something magic will happen. And the beautiful thing is here, in your case, as we say in NLP, a process, focus on the process and the outcome will take care of itself. And with you working 1%, 1%, improving the process, Kaizen, that Kaizen mindset, 1%, 1%, something magic's going to happen on this next trip, particularly just as in Pod Squad, you put yourself in an ecosystem of high performance, being around other high performers and learning by osmosis and modeling. As you say, it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a village to raise anyone. So you put yourself into that high-performing village, some magic's going to... It's the same as me swimming to Rottnest. I train with the other lunatics that say, well, in 2025, we're doing the 20K swim, and then we're doing the 25K swim. Yeah. And my first reaction to that is madness. Why would I want to do that? And then the next question is, well, if they're going to do it and I'm going to hang out with them, I might as well do it. And we'll raise money for charity and everybody wins. And in the meantime, you look back and you go, you did it, even though it seems like a crazy thought at the time. So let me ask you this, Helen, because again, routine determines results. So what does the day and the week of Helen Allison look like in terms of preparing yourself for these adventures and living the life that you lead?
I guess it's never the same, and it's changed from when I was 8 years younger, I guess. So once I'd done level 1, I knew I had to get fitter and I had to drop some extra fat. So I did take, I did have a gym coach 3 days a week, one-on-one, and that was superb. So that achieved the result that I wanted. So I suppose for that, you know, I got my body fat down to about 18%. I put on 4 kilos of muscle, and that allowed me to go and do my level 3, I suppose, for freediving, which was quite an event in itself for me to get to 30 meters.
Sure.
While I'm here at the moment, as you know, I've just been in the Philippines competing twice, and I've had 5 weeks back in Perth. I did start swim training with Claire Evans, And I did see, I am seeing a physio because I do have a little hip problem. I've got 3 of the 4 disciplines for world records, and I would like the 4th. But my hip needs a little bit of attention to be able to do frog kick. So for me, there's that challenge again. I do have 3 of the 4, but I want to get the 4th record. So what do I need to do to get the 4th record? Well, I need to see a specialist, get exercises to get my hip a little bit more mobile. So at the moment, that's what I'm concentrating on. I'm concentrating on getting that little niggle that I've got to improve. So the decision when I get to Bali will, do I concentrate on depth or do I concentrate on learning to do this new technique, which is a modified breaststroke, which is called no fins, one of the hardest of the disciplines for freediving.
Oh boy. So you're not going to have fins and you're going to use frog kick to go down, are you? And then you get to negative buoyancy still at what, 10 meters or 50? What is it?
It depends. I may have a little bit extra weight. So depending on the discipline, I'll add some weight or I'll take some weight off. So for free immersion, I add weight where I'm coming back up pulling. I'm not quite sure what I'll do. I'll probably use less weight for no fins because it's the hardest. And if I'm coming up, you want to be a little bit more buoyant near the surface because it is such a hard discipline to do. And it's better to be more buoyant on the surface than less and spend the energy to get through the positive buoyancy on the way down. Yeah, I would imagine that's how it might work.
Wow. The science still comes to the fore, working all that out. And let's talk about reading, Helen. Are you much of a reader? Do you read books? I mean, obviously doing your master's and PhD, you've read, but what books are you reading at the moment?
I have to say that I'm not reading any books.
Okay.
I'm a lazy reader. I now listen to audio.
You're a listener. You're more of a listener than a reader.
I'm a listener now.
So what are you listening to?
Well, I do like crime. And I like espionage. And I like the books on true espionage, basically. I think that spy world is a fascinating world to have been in. And just to think what's going on that we really don't know about in our everyday life, that's maybe it's best not to know about, but we know that that world is out there. So yeah, that's what fascinates me at the moment. But wow. I've got a full range of books over there, from Hiawatha by Longfellow, which I really love to read, that meter that's in that type of poem. There's a lot of non-fiction. So books on octopus, the soul of the octopus was a very about one of the last books that I read, which was just fascinating. I think octopus, as everyone now is aware of the octopus teacher, are fascinating marine organisms. So yeah, there's a lot of ID books, so marine fish and birds. So if I go anywhere, I'll usually buy a bird book and my binoculars. And if you've got nothing else to do, you can just do a little bit of bird watching. So there's a lot of books on identification of various animals as well.
So this is what happens on your day off, on your rest day. Is that what happens? You're listening to a book or reading a book or bird watching.
Bird watching or doing my dry exercises.
Yeah.
That's
fantastic.
What I'll be doing up in Bali. Yeah.
Fantastic. So what does the future look like for Helen Allison? What's next is you're about to go for this 4th world record. So if I said to you, what's going to happen over the next 2, 3, 4 years in your life by design?
Okay. My life by design, for the last 3 years, I've been taking a trip to Raja Ampat every year, sometimes 2 trips to Raja Ampat. So that marine experience and that adventure is still there. I will be away for 4 months this trip. So Bali to Greece and then to Raja Ampat. And I do have a trip booked for 2025 and 2026.
Look at that. You are a water baby traveler. There's no doubt about it.
At the moment, yes, but I used to love walking. So hat-to-hat walking in Europe used to be my form of exercise. Although I did row gaining as well. I was the West Australian women's champion for row gaining. So that's like orienteering, but over 24 hours.
Wow.
So, yep.
You really are an underachiever, aren't you? You've done almost nothing with your life. West Australian,
yeah,
West Australian.
nothing.
So besides world champion freediving for your age, a row gaining champion in amongst all of that. Oh, good. Oh, good. You're not laying around too much in this recovery mode. Let me ask you this though. What would be 3 tips you would give your younger self, to the young 13-year-old Helen Allison? What would you give the young Helen advice on? What would you say to her if you could?
If I could, probably, I mean, I was quite a shy child. And so I still think there are situations in which I'm not bold enough.
Really? What kind of
Yeah.
situations are they? Doing handstands on a disco floor? What are you talking? Where?
I think I'm a quiet extrovert in some ways. So also, I find it very difficult to, when I'm in company, I think first before I speak. So sometimes the opportunity gets lost in order to put my views forward because I tend to think before I speak, which is just how I do it. So maybe being more proactive in just don't be afraid to put your opinions out there would be one thing. What else would it be? I always give it a go. So that, I mean, I wouldn't do that. I'm not sure. That's a difficult question for me. I'm not sure. Other than being a little bit more bold in giving my opinion in certain circumstances, where, you know, I was advisor to the Minister for Environment at one point. So I was having to be on the front foot and give opinions in that space, in the environmental policy space. So being able to talk maybe from a position, I can talk from a position of knowledge, but where I have to then speak on some topics that maybe I'm not quite so familiar with, I do find that hard because I do like having the knowledge.
But at the same time, advice could be things that have worked for me, not the least of which is, you know, having a go or, you know, trusting your intuition. And obviously those seem to be things that have really worked for you, let alone, you know, I think, and I was thinking in terms of extroversion, the fact that you go out on all these groups, I suppose some of the people now are very good friends because they're all on the same journey. So, but all this travel, would be meeting new people all the time, whereas a super shy person wouldn't be so keen to do all that. So clearly you're pretty comfortable meeting new groups of people. Is that right?
Yes, very comfortable. I am now, and the groups of people that I meet are at least 20 years younger than I am, maybe 30, really. So in the freediving world, I'm mixing with so many different nationalities. And in a group of people that are just travelers, they don't have a home, many of them. They may be nomads, you know, they're e-nomad, so they work from anywhere. There was a woman doing her PhD in politics, history and politics, and she was in Panglao. So you mix with a range of people that are doing very different things from the norm. They're out there doing their free diving, working at the same time, or some of them are being sponsored enough that they don't have to work. So it's an amazing group of people, and people are contacting me all the time saying, oh, are you going to this competition? Are you going to that competition? I'll see you in Bali. I'll be there. Are you going to be there? So it is a wonderful group, a bit like the Pod Squad, really.
Yes, yes.
It's that you've got a common interest, and that ties you all together. And they're all very friendly as well. You know you're going to meet up somewhere else, whether it's in Bali or the Philippines or in Greece. It's a
Beautiful.
very loose group of people that come together in that common interest.
Right. And the waters are beautiful and blue, and the environment. So let's talk about ecosystem. The ecosystem you're in, we talk about the Pod Squad being an ecosystem of positivity. You'll have a positive, healthy ecosystem in a beautiful physical ecosystem as well. Helen, I'm going to go through some of my notes, words that have jumped out at me. By the way, one of my PhD sports science friends said, ask her about the bradycardia effect, the adaptation, which I assume he's talking about that diving response where the heart rate drops down or something. Do you know what I'm talking about there?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
What's all that about?
Because we have come from the marine system,
as in evolution.
Through evolution, yes, yeah. For sure. We still have responses to diving that whales, dolphins, seals have. So there's a lot of processes, physical processes, that under pressure and breath hold, we still happen automatically. So the sorts of things that can happen at various times is that your heart rate will drop, and it can drop down to 30 beats a minute or something like that. Depends where you are in your dive. On this watch now, it shows the heart rate. So I can now see where I'm exerting myself and where the heart rate comes down. The other things that happen is that the spleen will release more red blood cells to help oxygenate the blood, and you'll have blood shift. So blood will go from the extremities to the heart, the lungs, and the brain. So that happens as well. And as you increase the CO2, there's a slight change in pH. It doesn't have to be very much, but that slight change in the pH will help release the oxygen from the hemoglobin as well, the heme as well. So there's a whole lot of physiological changes that happen by itself as you go in, as you dive deep and go under pressure.
Just on that, do you make an effort if you think your heart rate, do you consciously try and slow your heart rate down in any way, or do you think that's possible, or when you
For me, I don't try to do that. I just I think some people can do that through yoga, but that's not, I don't really concentrate on the heart rate. It would be nice for it to be lower so that you're not using up so much oxygen. But what I concentrate on is just that relaxation. So with relaxation, the heart rate should come down.
Should come down, exactly. Yeah. You're reminding me in terms of that diving response. I remember in exercise physiology and some of the physiologies that we studied at uni, there'd been situations where people had been in a car accident and the car had gone in the water and the person had survived for 20 or 30 minutes submerged. You're going, how the hell did that work? And besides the diving response, it was like cold water as well. So again, as you say, the blood shunted to those key organs, and it seems like impossible, but the diving response, evolutionary, kicked in. Just unbelievable. Let me just go through some of these. I've got everything from you clearly were a water baby, are a water baby, the gratitude you had for your parents, that whole foundation that you had as a child, the curiosity, the 3 degrees, the line, out and about, just rug up, you know. And your PB of 54 meters. Well, no pressure. Let's see what happens as you keep doing the 1%, the Kaizen. The looking within to relax, just fantastic. And then this whole idea of relaxed focus, conscious breathing. And when I ask you, what did you do to get better? You got a coach, a gym coach, a swimming coach, whatever area you wanted to get better at, you got a coach. But one that jumped out earlier on, which I think is a metaphor for very much what I do, the damsel flies, how they transform into the flying adult stage. That's the business I'm in. I'm trying to help adults transform so that they fly as individuals and as teams higher. And certainly this podcast will help others realize, well, whatever age they are, here you are 70 saying, mate, I'm hanging out with people 20 years younger than myself and I'm going for world records and having a great time doing it. Just beautiful, just beautiful. Helen, is there anything we haven't spoken about that you'd like us to speak about before we move into the home straight?
Yes, I mean, I can't leave it without talking about the environment, because that's the part that we love, isn't it? Whether it's the water or the land.
Yeah.
So many parts of the ocean are now, they're depauperate of, there isn't the diversity of marine species. So the fact that we love the water, we love the land, the protection of that is very important. I have worked in Kruger National Park, trying to transfer my systems thinking to South African national parks so that they could manage the national park in a different way. So I would love as many people as possible to be in nature more, to feel more connected to nature, whether it's the terrestrial or whether it's the marine environment. But because without that, then we have nothing. So it's so important to encourage that, that love for nature, which my parents instilled in me from a very young age and continues. Yeah, for sure. The environment is so important.
Right. Well, then it just goes to show again that parents exposing kids to environment or key areas and how it literally has shaped your whole life, which is just a beautiful thing. Helen, this has been a fantastic interview as far as, one, clearly you taking conscious control of designing a life you want to lead, and at the same time, the conscious, besides conscious breathing, conscious continuous improvement as well. And
conscious
the
learning, continuous improvement, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
and
the ecosystems you put yourself in, which also then help you be the best person you can be. Helen, it's been an absolute and a pleasure being able to spend some time with you. We'll share this far and wide, and you'll inspire even more people. And I look forward to seeing you down the beach very soon. And have a. You don't need good luck on this next adventure, but good luck, good management.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy it, and let's see what magic unfolds from whatever happens on that trip. But I bet you're going to do some other wonderful things. What'd you say, 3 or 4 months, is it?
I'm away for 4 months, and the target is 63 meters this time.
Oh, you got a number in your head.
Yeah,
63.
Oh, yeah. There's always a goal.
There's always a number. There's another tip, folks. There's always a goal.
Yeah, yep.
Fantastic. I love the term namaste, from the love and light in me to the love and light in you. Namaste. Thank you so much for your time. We'll see you again very soon.
Will do. Thanks, Leigh.
Pleasure. Bye.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.